Welcome to another Awaken Your Relationships. I am Julie Murphy, and I'm the money chick. But Rita, my friend here, is the relationship expert because I always say we work things out and we act it out and we do it through our money, through our health, and through our relationships. So what I've come to realize, money is just the result of how we're plugging into the world in the other areas of our life. So it's super important for us to address these other areas of our lives because it's really what's energetically affecting everything. And Rita, thanks for joining me for another week.
Thanks for having me back. You know, I had this really interesting dream last night, and I've been taking mushroom tincture as well, adding it to my water and noticing how I think differently and how my dreams are changing. So I've really been having a lot of fun seeing things I hadn't noticed before. You know, when you get distracted by your own drama or emotions or trauma, it's like we miss 90% of what's going on around us. But when you really start doing personal development and doing things which make your body healthier, and you start to see things you didn't have before. So I've been following borderline personality disorder discussions on Quora for a while because I've had people in my life with borderline and very close relationships, and they've been, traumatic to be in. They've been hard to be in. And most of those relationships are usually very volatile, and the other person is very dramatic, and there's a lot of leaving and a lot of weird over the top responses. And I think in the world, women are finding this, and men, but I mainly work with women, that there are more and more people who have things like borderline personality disorder, where they have an underlying physical issue, but then you layer on trauma. So it's like complex PTSD. And it literally shapes the brain in how we think. And so I've been following on Quora different people responding who have borderline disorder, borderline.
So is that kind of like, just to kind of explain a little bit, is that kind of like we all have, so from our history, our experiences, our brain has grooves in it. So are you saying like it shapes the brain? So it's like, it's the shaping of the grooves in their brain?
Oh yeah, not only that, but it shapes every part. It shapes every part of you. So I'll give a good example. Some people who've had trauma, they have very bad skin, as in it's very dry and very flaky, and they have a hard time taking care of it. And actually a lot of people who have borderline, because there's usually a piece of trauma involved, can have problems with super dry or flaky skin or problems with their skin. And the reason for this is when their trauma gets triggered. So every time somebody wants to run or hide or fight or punch somebody in the face or blow up somebody's car or, whatever. Yeah. Whenever anybody feels like that, it means that they're triggered, and it means that their body responds in a very specific way. And one of the ways is it narrows the blood vessels on the skin. And so people will develop skin problems.
Yep.
Because if it's a constant state of fight or flight, their body's always pulling back, then the skin doesn't get the moisture in the blood and the nervous system signals. And after time, it turns into a skin problem.
That's so fascinating to me because I'm thinking of all the people that I know that have skin issues. And not all of them are borderline personality disorder, but when I think about when it flares up with those people, it is when it's emotionally driven, and I know that from the work that I've done with Louise Hay, that, in her book, Heal Your Life, Heal Your Body, she talks about that. She talks about how our emotions create our physical realities. And so it's interesting that the emotional component here with borderline personality disorder, it's the skin. Fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's just one example.
Yeah.
We have to look at people as all very different and on different spectrums of things. And so someone may just be chronically stressed out and have heart trouble, whereas someone else may have, let's say, ADD or ADHD underneath it, and then you add some trauma. And so now their brain is very divided, almost compartmentalized, because we're protecting those very wounded parts of us. I believe,
Fascinating.
yeah, my theory is that it's a primitive protection system. It's there to protect us when we can't protect ourselves. So it compartmentalizes it and then keeps protecting it more and more and more, because we're not in a safe enough place to process through it.
Right.
And then only when we get in a safe enough place, like you did with your divorce, were you able to remember and tap into some of these older memories. And if someone, let's say,
yeah, because it wasn't safe for me to do that before then.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't safe, so it just remained a trigger. It stayed a trigger the entire time until every time it was pushed, whether you knew why or not, you would have a flare up. And then let's say you were someone who had ADD, who constantly did things that blew up their life, that created more trauma for themselves and everything else. Now they have a brain that's filled like with minefields. And a body that's filled with minefields. And so their body's always going into contraction mode. And because
that's true. Oh my gosh.
Contraction mode. And so not just the skin, let's say heart trouble, because when we're in fight or flight, our blood vessels narrow and our heart has to work harder in order to pump the blood through our body. So when you've got a trigger, and people with borderline have more than most, triggers more than most have, then their blood vessels are in a constant state of being too narrow. Their heart is always having to work too hard. And it may, if they're dispositioned for that, turn into a heart problem.
Wow. That's fascinating.
So,
and what I would love for people to hear on this is the fact that you can actually shift these things. This is where, like, if you're in relationship with someone who has these things, you either have to leave because you don't want the ripple effects of the triggers, right? Because it really, when I look at how people are how whether it's clients that I'm coaching or experience I've had with friends and whatever, you can choose to either stay in it or not stay in it. And whether it's a friendship or a coworker relationship or even family relationships, like, just because they're your blood doesn't necessarily mean that you have to keep taking the hits, right? And holding healthy boundaries for yourself. So it's fascinating to me that if you can get somebody who wants to see their stuff, or can, sometimes it's not a matter of want, it's just that can they, if their trauma is so bad, they may not be able to actually see their own triggers.
It's hidden from them.
Yeah, because it's not safe. I think about my own situation where, for those of you who don't know my story, that, after I had gotten divorced, I was doing some energy work, and think of it kind of like almost like hypnotherapy, where you're going into the subconscious mind. And I had unpacked that there was a family friend who was a Catholic priest that actually sexually molested me when I was about 5 years old. And so it was never safe for me to unpack that until I decided on some level to stop repeating the patterns of not holding healthy boundaries for myself in my life. And it wasn't just one area of my life, it was all the relationships in my life. That's what we have to realize. Like, it's not just one person. We keep attracting the same person at work, in our families, in our romantic relationships, even children, that we have and how we interface. Like, it just repeats itself. And so, so you have to be not only willing to create a safe container for yourself, if you're the person that has the borderline, or if it's someone else that you're in relationship with, whether it's friendship or romantic relationship or even family relationships, that you hold a healthy boundary for yourself, that you choose to walk if they're not doing their work, because it will affect your health.
Oh, yeah. And it's interesting. There's two parts of this. One is, you were talking about the law of attraction, about how we attract the people in our life. And let's just think
Right.
about this for a second. So let's say you are sending out an extremely strong emotion into the field, and the emotion is around something that you're not willing to look at.
Right.
So, in order to stay in balance, in order to feel not like your world's all wobbly, you will be looking for something to fill up, to compensate for that part you're not looking for, you're not looking at, that trauma or that dark part or your own reactions, your shadow. So every time that we are so strongly emotionally engaged with something, we're sending out a call for the thing that fills up the space, that compensates for the thing we're not willing to look at.
Right.
Like only having a 2 legs for a 3-legged stool.
Right.
So we're going to be looking for the thing that will prop us up.
Right.
And so we create this every time we choose not to be compassionate to our own feelings.
Mm.
Every
Well,
time
and our
we
own
choose to blame
authenticity and our
somebody.
own desires, because when you are attracting this other person in your life, it's only because you have some work that's unresolved within yourself to actually work on.
Yeah. And usually it's some sad part of you or some trauma. You
Yeah.
needed to work on your trauma. And
Right. And I didn't even know I needed to work on a trauma.
yes. And we spend our lives saying, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? And so we're sending out, we're like a siren song, and we're sending that out.
Yeah.
But when we stop blaming anybody and we start saying, oh, what's happening here? Why are you behaving so strongly? Why are you hurting so badly? Let's go be kind
Fix
to
it.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of what happened to many people as a child, before the age of 8. That's when almost half of our beliefs about the world are imprinted. So we end up with all of these beliefs even before the age of 8, and usually they're the time that you felt the least loved.
Yeah.
And so at the times you felt the least loved, that's a trauma. And if you give yourself the love you were supposed to get when
So
this
true.
happened, then you can fix it and you become whole. And you don't need somebody else to be a third leg. You're a 3-legged stool, having a relationship with, I don't know, the cat that sits on you.
Right.
But you're stable and different and unique in and of yourself. You aren't dependent on someone else to take care of the things that are emotionally too hard for you to face.
Right. That makes sense.
And how do you know it's a problem? Because it turns into a physical problem, or it turns into some sort of relationship problem, and that's the clue.
Right. Sorry, I'm trying to adjust this sun that keeps setting in my face. I'm like, hey, where's the sun? Maybe I'm just going to move over a little bit this way. There we go.
Oh, that's better.
You can see some of my angel wings.
I know. I love those angel wings. I loved it when you would sit in front of it because it would just look so perfect. Perfectly in alignment with your mission in the world, with your
being a little angel.
Mm-hmm.
Woo, woo, my little
especially
wings.
When you wear black, then it's perfect, like you're really an angel, but you come across as a devil.
Ah! Well, I was told that that when we're sensitive, the colors that we wear depend on how much that we absorb of other people's stuff.
I've never
And so I started to realize one of the reasons that I wear black so often is because I'm super sensitive to the energies around me, and that actually protects me. So it's interesting that the color of our clothes actually has to do with somewhat of how we're dealing with the energies that are around us.
Makes me think of a goth, when in high school, the girls that would wear goth. you know?
Yeah, well, and they were tapped into a lot of times you found that you find out that they're tapped into dark energies. The
Mm.
ones that are goth, right? Not the
Mhm.
light, but the
Yeah,
dark.
I just knew people who chose it as a style choice. I was
Mm,
way too messed up in high school to like, I did things, I did great things, but it was
mm.
all internally, I was struggling so much. Externally, I was a super high achiever. But so I wasn't really present to a lot of things, and I didn't have close friendships, and I didn't even know how to create friendships in the first place because I was too scared to to let anybody see how strongly I would react to things. I didn't want to be laughed at. I didn't want to be rejected. I didn't want to be ostracized. And so
Right,
that's the problem that happens with a lot of women is we end up in relationships with people who have, borderline personality disorder or similar other mental health disorders that cause them problems, and we hide because
right,
the belief is that we're helpless, there's nothing we can do about it, and no one cares enough about us to be able to help us.
right.
And that's something that we learned, as I said, before the age of 8.
Yeah,
Because
because our subconscious mind gets hardwired before then.
mhm,
But
mhm.
one of the things I am realizing is that, especially in this period of time, we all can have quantum leaps.
Oh yeah. Oh
Every
yeah.
single one of us.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
And so it's fascinating to me um, how if we have tried something for years before, try it again
Yes.
because the energy is different right now
Yes.
that you can actually have much more of a quantum leap to get you to where you want to be. And it'll come with more ease and grace, and it'll actually have a higher impact of what it is that you're trying to shift
Yeah.
because the energy frequencies have really changed and opened up.
Mhm.
So watch the stories that you tell yourself in terms of, well, I've been trying that for years. Well, yeah, you probably have, but that's okay because now this time's going to be different
Mhm.
because this time you're going to be able to actually shift it in a
Yeah.
deeper way than you were able to before because things are really changing
Yeah.
from that
And
perspective.
when we were a child, we literally were helpless to what was going on. But the thing is trauma keeps us trapped at that age,
Mm,
4, 5, or 7, or 8, or 2. And it keeps us trapped there. And we don't realize that we became full fledged adults with the ability and the knowledge to reverse or to give ourselves what we didn't get, before the age
right,
of 8. So the
right.
lie that we tell ourselves is that we're helpless. But when we tell
Mm,
ourselves we're helpless, that's us. That's just the trauma protecting us from feeling helpless, from feeling like we're no good, that inner critic that constantly tells you you're wrong. It's just there to try to protect you until you are old enough and safe enough to turn and look at it. So if women are watching this or men are watching this, if they're watching this, it means that you're ready. It means
that's
that
so
you're
true
ready to
because you're
face
finding
this.
it for a reason.
Yes, you're ready to
Mhm.
face this. And if you choose to, you can. And you can make this is a way different age than it ever was. We know more about the brain. We can be more strategic about it. There's more access to mental health support, whether it be psilocybin or psychedelics or
Right,
even just marijuana, in order to help people manage anxiety.
right.
So we have more herbal medicines than we've ever had for mental and emotional health. We're more open to what every culture brought to the table for healing, and science is backing it all up. So this is not 1979.
It's really interesting that you say that because lately I've been meeting people who are in the more of the traditional roles of actually like even just I got referred to a therapist recently as a client who is on the cutting edge of all the research with the psychedelics with trauma therapy and bringing it in to the mainstream. She's like the bridge because she understands the psychology field because for 30 years she's been seeing severe trauma patients and so but now she's integrating that with the work that she's been doing in the psychedelic realm and then I also just met a friend of mine. We reconnected, lives out on the West Coast, and her husband is actually jumping right into that field. And I guess there's a lot of training that goes down in Jamaica on that right now. And it's funny, it seems to be in the Caribbean area where a lot of them are doing the trainings on that. I found that fascinating because here's different parts of my world, not only those two, but I've got a couple others as well. And it's fascinating to me that this consciousness is now starting to come to the table. And so those of you who are watching that, if you haven't been able to find the right mix for you, or if you still think that like however it is that you're doing it and working with these things, it may be time to consider out of the box solutions that you haven't considered before, because this is cutting edge realization. I'll say it's very old information, but it's cutting edge realizations and proof that they actually can make a positive impact to get past some of these traumatic things that we've been maybe medicating ourselves for, or choosing not medication, but you still need some help with something or whatever. Certainly,
Well,
I'm not in the medical field, but something to explore, something to consider.
yeah, the misinformation that we have is that, in order to get the benefits of herbal medicines, they have to be something that either, make you high or give you some, LSD kind of experience. And in reality, like I order on Amazon lion's mane as a tincture. Mushrooms have unheard of abilities to grow new brain cells and create new connections. Or even something as simple as chamomile tea when you're
Right.
noticing you're stressed out. People get blocked into thinking that, oh, well, it's got to be, I don't want to get high, or I don't want to have a trip, or I don't want to experience that. And
Right.
in reality, you don't have to have any sort of psychedelic in order to still have herbal medicines that are out there that are readily available. You type in lion's mane on Amazon and you'll come up with 400 different options.
Wow.
This isn't hidden. And so it's being smart about using the plant world in order to help our bodies grow and evolve into beings that can handle the crazy world we live in right now.
So true. So true. And you know what? It's just about be open to consider other things, because if they come into your world and you're hearing it from us and you've already heard it before, it means that you're being called to explore it on some level, and pay attention to that, because there's a reason it's coming to you. Right?
Right. Because we are aligning ourselves with what we want. And when you're clear about what you want, which means you have to take time and ask yourself, and women don't do this.
So can we talk about that? So one of the things that I am really, we all have stuff.
Mhm.
We all have issues. We all have things that we have been struggling with over the particularly last 2 years. And it's time to stop focusing on the struggle. It's time to stop focusing on the fear. It's time to start to say, this is what I want to create in my life. And so this is what I'm going to focus on. And all of those past things are true. They're all very real. They're all valid. It's not that we're invalidating, because sometimes we just want to be heard. But I am telling you, you are the creator of your life. And it's time to keep your focus on only the stuff that you want to create. Because if you focus at all on what's going on from your past, you are only recreating that in your present moment. And it's going to recreate the past in your future. And I cannot tell you, I just finished, I don't know if I told you this or not, but I just finished the end of my third book, um, The Four Spiritual Laws of Money.
Oh,
And thank
congratulations.
you.
That
And
must
I
be a
just
great
wrote about
one.
this because it's I can focus on the fact that I was sexually molested as a priest, or I'm divorced, and I'm, the one that pays all the alimony and all the kids' tuition, and I'm the only one responsible for kids. I could focus on all that stuff that are all responsibilities, and some would say burdens, and I could. They're all very valid, but I refuse to. I absolutely refuse to. Why? Because I just want to focus on, I'm going to continue to grow and build my business and the impact I'm making in the world. And then all those other things will all be taken care of, because if I'm growing my business, because that's what I want to create in my life, all the money then shows up. Right? And I don't have to worry about it being a burden or stressful or any of that other stuff, because when you align with what you truly desire, what you truly want to create in the world, regardless of whether you're the one with the borderline personality disorder or if you're dealing with someone who has borderline personality disorder, if you always align with your heart and you always align with what your desires are, the rest will vibrate. It literally will vibrate and fall away. And the challenge is allowing it to just vibrate and fall away. That is the big challenge, because many of us want to scoop it back up and pull it back with us. And no, let it literally go. I mean, I had somebody who worked with me on my, and I actually think he might have borderline personality disorder, honestly. Someone who was working on my platform, doing some of my stuff behind the scenes and in a business relationship. And you know what? Sure as shit. Like, he just ghosted the whole team, went dark. And I'm like, oh, I could see this as he was just in his stuff. And I went immediately into, okay, who do I want to support me? And I wrote out all the attributes of who we needed to support the team, and what did we like from the person that we were working with, and what did we not like, and what did we want to replace the things that we didn't like. So we just focused on that creation of the new. And within, no joke, within a week, and Rita, I introduced you to who we found. And Gabe is amazing.
He's
And
amazing.
it's really super fascinating to me that it all depends on where we choose for our words and our thoughts and our feelings to go towards.
Well, and the thing we don't understand, that a lot of people don't understand, is we're a world that's filled with every different type of brain. And in fact, they've studied different cultures, and their habits and patterns and beliefs literally physically shape their brain differently
Totally.
than other cultures. So we are all different. Now, when you add neural diversity, like let's say you have ADD or ADHD, or let's say you've got bipolar, or let's say you've got something, if we can focus on the fact that that they have a genius brain,
right,
and not some brain that's that's the devil, if we can help them embrace that they have a genius brain, then they're able to take that genius brain and become an amazing version of themselves. And so you are looking
totally
for
agree,
someone who is a genius at what they do and had worked through a lot of the things that in the past had held them back.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons Gabe is so great is because he's done so much work on himself.
Totally.
Right. And because of that, he's able to use his super brain.
Right? He does have a super brain.
And do things that that to me are quantum. And but the cool thing is when we value and appreciate and support these kind of brains, instead of, bully them and minimize them.
Well, and see where their gifts are and just support their gifts.
Yes.
Because we all have gifts. Every single one of us.
Yes. And we're all needed. And all of our gifts are needed, which is why we have to get rid of the past, because the world desperately needs us to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. Because otherwise we're going to blow ourselves up.
So true.
The earth is going to kill us. The earth is going to be fine, but she'll kill us first. We'll be gone. So You know, people used to ask me. I spent about 8 or 9 years managing nature preserves and state protected areas, fens and oak hickory woodlands and prairies and things. And people would ask me, they'd be like, well, why do you manage it? Why do you go through and get rid of these invasive species? You're not really helping the earth. And I said, I know I'm not really helping the earth. The earth is going to be fine. What I want is to have a healthy, biodiverse area that supports me. Mother Earth is going to take care of herself fine. She will kill us all off before we can do too much more damage.
Yep.
So I manage the natural areas for my health.
Right.
So, when we help manage our whole community of different thoughts and personalities and brains and everything, and we let go of the past, we prune those things out, and we focus on what will nourish us and grow, then we're going to be okay. I mean, we're at a crossroads. Many cultures have said it's a 5,000-year cycle, including the Mayan calendar.
5,132 years.
And where people
Not
get
that I've ever heard it before.
Yeah. People get the chance. They can either, we're either going to rise up and create an even better world than we've ever imagined by working through this adversity. And that's why there's a quantum movement, because we need to be these people.
Yep.
Or we'll decide to stay in our past,
right?
In our trauma, when we didn't have the tools, when we were helpless children, when our only choice was to scream and cry and throw things and hit people, when that was our only option to protect ourselves. So we can either do that, like what our politicians have been doing, or we can say, you know what? We need to be on a higher level. We need to forgive and love the people that are struggling with mental illness, even if they don't recognize it themselves. And when we can send that support, then the whole field rises, just like those meditators in DC, that the whole field rises.
Yeah, because it's the energy grid. And so much of it has to do with our perspective, right? So I look at, with the people with the ADD or ADHD or the borderline personality disorder, I would encourage everyone who's got those people in their lives, and or if it's you, to try to see, because there's always a light and a dark side of everything, right? So can you see the gift? Can you see the light? The gift that I've received from having some of those people in my life have been the fact that it's made me really into a deep surrender process, meaning that I really have this state of neutrality and a state of allowance and acceptance of many things in life now that I'm like going, wow.
Which 10 years ago would have kept you in a constant state of anxiety.
Well, I would have been battling with them 10 years ago. But today what I'm doing is I'm going, oh, I don't need to battle. I'm good. And what it is that I'm just sitting in this place of going, oh, they're triggered. I can now see their trigger.
Right.
And go, oh. And I'm super grateful for the relationship that I'm currently in, because we each can see, like, I'm triggered. Why am I triggered? So now it happens like instantaneously for the two of us. And even when we have the kids, we're like, you're triggered. What's up? And just because we hold the space of asking the question of you're triggered, what's up? The kids are learning to process it super fast.
Oh, great. What a
super
gift.
Fast.
Thank you for raising the next generation in a good way.
Yeah. And it's just about the fact that when you see crazy going on, like, there's a little bit of crazy going on. Just mention it, right? Vaccines, politics.
Yeah.
The school system right now is driving me a little bonkers, but I'm just going, all right, well, maybe my kids aren't supposed to be at school. And that's why I've got my kids, because my nanny wound up with COVID. And so now I'm sitting at home homeschooling my kids for 2 weeks.
And we shouldn't be in a battle with our schools and our neighbors and our friends and our family. We
Right.
can't live a fractured community.
Mm-hmm.
We
And it's
can't.
really fascinating to me to even watch in the school relationships. My kids go to a Catholic private school, and it is fascinating to me to see how there's a lack of faith and a lack of trust. They're all trying to control the shit out of everything. And I'm like, whoa. Like, and I can now, because of these beautiful souls that have had the borderline personality disorder in my life and the ADHD, I've created this space internally that I can now look at crazy going on in the world with like the school stuff and just kind of go, fascinating. Like, I can now see it because I'm not reacting anymore. And this is the gift. Like, so if we can start to shift our perspective of things and go, what's the gift in this? You're triggered? Ask, what's the gift? What's the gift?
One of the things I always worried about doing my own work, getting rid of these traumas and getting calmer, is I thought I would become like a flatliner. I thought I
Oh,
wouldn't have any emotions at all. And what really shifted for me is watching some great documentaries and reading some of the books that around the Dalai Lama. Because if anybody's supposed to be neutral, if anybody's supposed to be flatlining, it would be the Dalai Lama.
mm.
But because he, spiritual, meditates all the time, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, he has the full range of emotions. He just doesn't
Right.
hang on to them. So he gets angry and he gets hurt and he cries and he remembers things. But the key is that you keep letting it go.
That is it. You let it move through you as opposed to
Yes.
getting stuck. Right.
Yes.
That is a really big piece. Like to get it to move through you. And, I've met, I was very feisty back in the day, and then you attract other feisty people in your life, right? And it's funny, like I've learned that my feistiness was just about the fact that I wasn't actually letting things move through me. I was holding on to them, and they were building up.
And that's where the weight problems come from, or
Right.
that's where the adrenal or liver or that's where all of these problems come
All of
up,
it.
because
Fascinating.
we're like stagnant pools that are getting smelly, you know.
Oh, here's to smelly pools.
There you go.
Oh, Rita, this has been so helpful because I think so often we try to bury, like we try to say, okay, well, the people who have the ADHD and the borderline personality disorder, that we want to like put them off to the side, like we don't see them.
Like do you remember in school when we were kids, all the ADHD kids that were
They were all put in
learning
another
disabled, they
place
were all put in a different school or a different room or a different
because
something.
it was like out of sight, out of mind.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and of course, then they're going to become adults with problems because, how do you ever accept yourself when you've been ostracized? So when we
Right.
can have compassion, so much compassion, but not in a fluffy bunny way where it's like, oh, you poor dear, more like, I believe you can do this. I
Right.
believe you can grow through this. I believe that you
Right.
can be a better version of yourself. And even if I have to stand up to you, or even if I have to leave to protect myself, I know you can do this. And that to me is true compassion, not feeling sorry for someone, but having the love and understanding
That's
and,
so true.
and knowledge that they will
Yep.
get through this and be a better version of themselves than they were before.
Totally.
You know,
Totally.
and we
Well,
have to have
Rita,
that compassion for us too.
totally. So, how do people get a hold of you? Because you have shared so much insights, and how do they get a hold of you? How do they get your help?
The best, easiest is RitaHickmanCoaching.com, as you can see on the screen. But if you just do a Google search for me, you'll find me on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. I've been doing this for like 15 years. So I've got, pain management videos out there. I've got narcissism videos out there, spiritual videos. I'm everywhere.
And don't forget, since she's everywhere, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button and that notification bell. Because why? So that way you're notified when Rita and I get back on talking about stuff. Then you'll be notified when that stuff comes up. And because we're here to help. And I'm still offering that if you want a free copy of my book, I've put the link there below. All you have to do is pay for your shipping. I've had people go, "This isn't free." No, trust me. I paid for the book to get it printed and all that stuff, which is
And
more
you wrote
expensive.
it.
And I wrote it.
And you didn't get paid for writing it.
That is true.
You know, I mean, come on. Your wisdom and your knowledge, this is gold. And you are giving away your gold just like I do for free because we're letting it move through us.
Right. And I just want you to pay for the shipping so that it's not more of a burden on my side than just the production piece.
Right.
And
so you can make more books and have more insights and share greater wisdom and knowledge with all of us who need to know what you're learning.
Exactly. Well, thank you again. And I look forward to another week next week, Rita. See you guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.